So I'm just gonna do a little demonstration on how I did the leaves. This is a very light wash. Oh, this is too much. Let's see. Sometimes that happens. And I can use some of that for the next part. And it's just all about layering. I'm leaving some white in there so I can have some really bright highlights as I'm going. And then I'm going to do the foundation for the actual flower. Now I'm going to probably zoom in a little bit on this. So right now I'm placing kind of a reference so you can see what I'm doing right now and what size it is. So it's fairly tiny. So I'm just doing kind of a outline of the flower. I'm just getting the basics in there right now. Trying to figure out a light source. And this is kind of what I'll do for a lot of things. I'll just kind of figure out a light direction and just tapping it in there to give it a little bit more shading. And while I'm working on one section, I'm waiting for the other section to dry. So now I'm going to come in with some. Now, again, I have to emphasize that I'm doing it a little faster than I would normal, because this is just for the demonstration purposes anyway. Now this one is underneath, so it's going to be a little bit darker. I'll put some shadows right here, like it's casting a shadow on the one below. And as I'm working, I'm also thinking about the next steps in the process. Now, I don't think that orange part is done yet. So what I'm going to do is just work on the leaves itself. Now I'm using kind of a damp brush, not wet, and I'm just pulling the colors out. So there's a blending process to this, and from this point I will either go lighter or darker, but this is just the blending part, trying to give the leaves a little form. This is another one underneath beside. So I'm just gonna emphasize the flow and direction of the leaves. Now this is one technique of how to do flowers. There's all kinds, and I use a variety of different ones depending on the type flower or leafing process. It's just whatever works for the occasion. So you can see there's some lights and darks ones in here, and that's kind of what I'm going for. So now I'm going to come in. It's a little damp still, but that's fine. So I'm just pulling out the highlights and going over, layering. For me, because I wanted to make detail, it's all about the layering. I need to do that to show the detail. And I don't know if this is the first video you've seen on me, so if it is, at one point in time, I was the scientific illustrator sculptor for the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles for 15 years, so had to do a lot of different things: sculpting, designing, scientific illustration. They used all my talents and kind of expanded my talents because I had to adapt or die. And when you have to finish something, you need to get it done, but then you have to do it with what they call museum quality. So sometimes, you know, it requires a little bit more time than normal. I am fortunate to have the abilities to have more time to work on things, which is really helpful. But at that point, it's just kind of they want it done right. And when you're doing some things, you can speed things up. But when it comes to scientific illustration, which I did quite a few, there is no time limit. It's whatever it takes to get it done. So that was really good. So that was one of those things where they needed to have it exact, and time is not a factor in that. They just want it right. So now I'm laying down a sap green for the stem, and I'm just kind of like tapping it. So there's going to be a slight transition. Now, what's going to happen, and I know it's not going to be able to do this whole thing on this, because some things do take a little time. So what I'm going to be doing is going in there and just doing little layers. And what's going to happen is I'm going to go into these layers over and over and build up the color. Some of it's a little wet right now, so that's going to be an undercoat. When it fully becomes dry, then I'll go in and just add a little Payne's gray to the orange. Slight, not very much. And then come in with, in between with this, a sap green, and slowly build that up too. Now, it may be a little too wet right now, so it's not going to show up that much, but just going to do a small section. So right now it's just a blending. It's kind of what I would call a foundation background. And right now I'm not really in scientific mode. I am in detail mode, which is two completely different things. If I get into scientific, it's going to be 10 times more realistic, and everything is going to be done to the nth degree because it's what's required. So I'm just going to kind of come into this one leaf here. And I'll just do a little bit on this one. Now, what I'm looking for is a little bit of a highlight. Right now they look a little flat, so I want it to be a curve. Now, the way I would do that, I would just kind of blend in the middle and pull the watercolor out. And you can almost see it starting to form. And I'll come back into here with a little bit. And you can see the difference between this one and the others. Like I said, the other ones look a little flat. And you can almost see the leaf turning in just by doing a little highlight in the center. Now it's a damp brush, and I'm wiping off the brush. I'm coming back in, blending. Now I may come in with just a slight color change. Anyway, so that's kind of the okay, I'm going to do a little demonstration on this. Now this, I came in with some layers down there and then overlapped. I'm just going to show you what I did. This is kind of a sap green. So I pulled out the color. As you can see, it's a little bit whiter. Now I will go in there and blend more. Try to give it some volume. So in other words, it's a little bit darker on this side. And then I'll come in, not as dark as this side. I'll leave a little bit of a highlight on this side. My reference point. I'm just trying to do a separation from this to this. And now I just pulled off most of the water and color, and I'm just doing a blending process. Now I will come back in here, and I know I don't have the time for this, but kind of blend these so they're not as harsh. And I will put highlights like I did with the flower up above. I will go in there and make some things a little bit darker just to give it a little bit more blending process. Now these are things that take a little bit of time. Now I'm going to do a little demonstration on the leaf itself over here. Let's see if I can. Okay, so I have kind of like a foundation in there right now, and I'm made, and I'll go over those veins a little bit more. So I'm just kind of doing some random patterns. I will show the leaf that this is what I'm painting or drawing from. So you can see it does have a lot of ridges and bumps. So I'm just pulling from this darker area. And this is what I call the random doodling. Now, it makes sense to me because I know what's going to be happening. So, And this is a layering process. Now I'm trying to transition to a lighter part, just like I did on the flowers. And I will build these up. Now when I need to come in and go a little darker, like this, then I'm going to overlap. I'm not going to cover everything. It has some ridges on the edge. Now obviously I can't do the whole leaf, but I could do quite a bit just on this little section here to explain how I did the rest. So I'm not going over the yellow. Now this is going to require many layers, but now when I lay this down, I'm going to come into that yellow part and it's going to blend. And I'll get a smaller brush to do the veinage. I don't even know if that's a word. And by doing that, it'll start to blend everything in. What I'm going to do is now just do a little wash over that. So those highlights will still pop out, but not as drastic as it was. You can see the blending. When I start using a smaller brush, I'm going to start pulling out little highlights, following the vein. But also, I need to make other little vein patterns. And you can see I'm just pulling out the color, wiping off the brush. Hopefully you can see that just slight. Now I may be doing it a little bit more than I would, because just for demonstration purposes you can see it better, but they would be really fine. Now once I get to that point, it should be drying a little bit. And then this is where I would come back in with the sap green. And you can see I'm following the vein patterns just so they show up more. And you can do some corrections. You can see I'm getting thinner there. But it's the same technique, just redoing it. And then it's that randomness of the leaf. Now that randomness does make it look more natural. I call it control scribbling. And you can see I'm just building up the layer slowly. Now I did pull out a highlight there, so you can see the vein patterns. I'm just going to do a quick, this part's dry already. Wipe it off. And you can see the vein patterns popping out now, because I'm going in and blending, so this is not really finished on this side, but this side is. But you can see I'm just kind of blending, pulling out the colors, going over things. Anyway, so that's a demonstration how to do those. See how much time do I have? Ooh, I'm getting kind of up there. So I will do a little bit more explaining later. And show the pictures from Lowe's in the garden department. Be good, be careful. Okay, so this is the new concept. I'm just going to take a slow roll up. And as I stated before, this is from Lowe's. It was a group of flowers. And now I'm going to come down and then do a little closer up. So I'm doing the veinage on this, and of course add a few water drops. And this is kind of a start of the foundation, so I'll be going into this a lot more. Matter of fact, all these I'll be going into more. It just requires layers and layers. This is kind of wonky, so I need to make it look like it's not falling off here. And then, of course, me being me, I get kind of nutsy. So this is actually my eye, and it's kind of, I've showed the image of my eye that I did a watercolor of, several images of my eye. So just the ability to do whatever I want without having to check with anybody. So you can see the layering process right here. As you can see, I just put a foundation. I'm going to have a few more in there. And you can see the process of layers. So I'm just going to show you what I've been doing. So I'm just trying to give this thing a little bit more volume. So I'm coming in here and just blending, trying to get the highlights a little bit more intense, and then highlighting those to give it form. So eventually what's going to happen is it's going to get a little darker here, and that'll give the image more of an arc. As you can see, it still needs a lot more layers and fine detail, but turning out okay so far. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick scan. So did a lot more stems, added more detail into the eyeball, or my eyeball in the flower. Added some insects, so I'm just gonna come in here. Did a correction on this so it made it a little bit more balanced. And this is just for size reference. Blended in, still needs some more work. Has a kind of a nice shadow underneath. Went into some of the flowering, blended it. Added a walking stick in here. Still needs a little bit more work, but it's pretty good. I don't know, or I've been working on it, but I don't remember if I showed some of the water drops. Now I'm going to do some irregular ones so that they're not all round. Went in here, added a little bit more of a shadow, pull some detail out. Came into here, added more detail into the leaves. Added another butterfly. So some of these are, let me get into this a little bit closer. So I came in here with a light wash, so it looks like the lens, and then the iris is down here, as I said before. This is my eye. So I still have a few ideas. I'm going to add a few more butterflies. Now I'm thinking of having several ants climbing up a stem. I don't know if it's going to be on this side or down up here. So yeah, that's kind of what the plan is. Anyway, so it's turning out pretty nice. Been working on it for a few weeks now. So now it's all the little fine detail that needs to be done. Okay, so this is an update video. Okay, so there's kind of the last two that I was doing. And there is one from a previous painting. Now, what I have is I should come in from an up angle. So these are actually off the board. And this is the main one that I was working on. Well, let me start from the bottom. So right here you can see, now this still, I'm still in the process. Been working on this for like 3 weeks and doing little updates, and I'm going to do some more realistic water drops. Have some, that's my eye there, a little strange. Now this is another one of those that's coming off the paper. But if you can look up here, you can see there is a theme to this. This is like the third painting I did when I was coming back after everybody was messed up from COVID. But there is kind of a theme going on. This is my Metamorphosis that I did about 10 years ago. And you can see, you know, it's kind of the way butterflies develop. And you can see them coming off the box there and then taking flight in my house. I don't know if you can see that. And of course, there is the rainbow. You might be getting some reflection there. As you can see, there's a theme to my work. I don't even know. Well, normally I would change this to put a few of them that are coming off, but this is an older piece, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Hello, I'm Steve Melendrez, a model maker, illustrator, scientific illustrator, sculptor, design natural history museum in Los Angeles. Done a lot of different things, but I'm going to be doing watercolor demonstrations of the techniques I've developed over the years, and it's going to go from a lot of different directions. And also I'm going to be doing videos, I call them video posters for my daughter. So a lot of stuff that I can leave to my daughter about her crazy dad. So I'm taking a lot of different directions, but mainly 3. So anyway, that's my introduction that I'm going to attach to everything I'm doing now, so I don't have to repeat this. Be careful out there.